Hey there. Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi Kay Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab some espresso, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 281 is titled Flute Forward, Opening Doors, Creating Opportunities. Hey there, 360er. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's topic is all about helping you to build amazing creative, musical, and financial opportunities for your career. Now, the reason why I'm diving into this topic is because you've asked for this topic to be discussed. A lot of you have been sharing with me these fears and pain points and hurdles along the way through our private Facebook group. Now, if you are a part of our group, thank you so much. And I love the dialogue that we have within the group week to week. But if you're not in our group, I am personally inviting you to join our free Facebook group, and it's called Flute 360 Family. The link is provided in the show notes below, and you can request to join. I will approve it, and you have a whole world of new flute friends who are just dying to meet you. So when you ask to be a part of the group, one of the questions is, hey, what's going on in your neck of the woods? And you guys open up and you are super honest with me, and you share these topics and you share these problems that you are facing within the chat feed. So I'm so appreciative that you are comfortable with me and the other 360ers to start these conversations for the betterment of your career. And this episode today is going to give you solutions around the topic of building opportunities for yourself. So I get it. Whether you have moved to a new city, perhaps you live in a rural part of the country, maybe you are an empty nester now and you've raised your family and now it's time to be a little selfish and put some musical opportunities on your calendar. Maybe you have a traditional 9-to-5 job outside of music, and on the weekends, you want to feel fulfilled outside of your W-2 job. I get it. So today's content, we are going to dive in and really give you some solutions to this pain point. So no matter what season you find yourself in, and if you find that this is a problem in your world, please know that you're not alone. And I think a lot of flutists and musicians are dealing with this is because there's a lot of different factors, but one factor I believe stems from how we were trained as classically trained artists. So think about your collegiate career or your graduate career as you were and are obtaining these different music degrees. When did you talk about networking? When did you talk about making opportunities for yourself throughout your music curriculum? Not every school, but chances are a lot of different music schools, they don't really provide their students with this information or these resources. Now, I'm not bashing music school. Music school does a lot of great things. They teach you how to play your instrument well, in time, in tune, with artistry and expressivity, how to study scores, musicology, and the list goes on and on. But unfortunately, a lot of music programs really don't give their students the skills of networking. Now, if you hear that and you're thinking, okay, that's great, Heidi, but why are we talking about networking when we are discussing building out opportunities for myself in career? Well, the two go hand in hand. And if you have been an avid 360 listener in the past, you know that this is one of my soapboxes, okay? And it's probably not your fault. Like I said earlier, the music curriculum, they don't really teach students how to network and how to add these tools into their toolbox. So that's what this episode is going to help you achieve. Now, when I've talked about networking in the past, I've had lovely discussions with my flute friends about that topic. And one conversation in particular really caught my eye. And it was with my flute friend Carmen, and she mentioned that she had an aha moment. She shared it with me, and I soon realized that a lot of people see networking as this sleazy, gross thing. But the way that Carmen, my flute friend, had this aha moment, she said, when I hear you talking about networking, I think of professional friend making. I hear you encouraging people to make friends at the professional level. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. And I'm so appreciative to hear Carmen articulating it just so. The reason why I bring this up is because if you're in that camp, if you feel like, ooh, networking is this gross, icky thing, it doesn't have to be. Maybe it feels icky and gross because you feel like you need to be, air quote, on and selling yourself to the other party. It doesn't need to be that way. And actually, I encourage you to put the other individual's needs and wants before your own. So as you are introducing yourself to somebody at a flute festival, a music conference, whatever it is, really show them that you are wanting to start up a conversation, build a relationship from this authentic and genuine place. And the more you network, I promise you, it's a muscle that you can train. It's not something that always comes easy to everyone, and that's a-okay. If you are more of an introvert and you're just like, oh, reaching out to people and initiating a conversation, that drains me. I feel taxed when I do that. If that's you, you can do baby steps, right? Send a text, send a DM. It doesn't have to be, you traveling across the Metroplex and going to a conference. If that drains you and that's too much, then do one baby step at a time. But the reason why I bring up networking and I'm encouraging you to put yourself out there is because we cannot do it alone. By putting people into your orbit, you are building your own door with them. You are building possibilities of opportunities for you and the other party. So if you can think of that win-win situation, you are good to go. Now, whether or not the music curriculum teaches this skill to you or not, another air quote problem that you may be facing is that we do a lot of independent work. Think about it. We practice in our small cubicles. We practice independently for hours at a time. And being told to pick up the phone or send a text or send an email to a new person or network at a networking event can seem daunting because we do a lot of independent work. So my encouragement for me to you is if you feel like you use your instrument to some degree as a comfort blanket, get comfortable stepping outside of your comfort zone because that's where the growth happens. If you feel like you're hiding behind your instrument because you see yourself as flute, you are a flutist, that's great. Celebrate that. I'm so happy that you have found a passion. I'm so glad that you resonate with the instrument, but there's so much more outside of just playing. We need people to build opportunities for everyone's career. So if you feel like perhaps you are a flutist who tends to gravitate towards that independent work, I encourage you to step outside of your practice room and start knocking on other people's doors. And the reason why I bring this up too is because if you feel like this is your tendency, just maybe, I empathize with you, just maybe you are waiting for your door to be knocked. You are waiting for somebody to call your number. You're waiting for somebody to text you for the next music gig, for the next music opportunity. Guess what? That could happen. That may very well happen. But I don't want you to get stuck on the sidelines. I want you to be active and involved in the game at hand. You can't wait for somebody to call you. You need to pick up the phone and start making things happen for your career. Now I get it. I empathize with you. Just hearing that, I know that there are a lot of layers to this. You may be thinking, well, where am I going to network? How am I starting up a conversation? Who are these people that I'm going to start talking to? Et cetera, right? The list goes on and on. So I know that this is a lot to unpack, and I can't go through all the different scenarios and layers, but I can give you some nuggets to give you a head start. So where to network? Now, think creatively. You have music world events and opportunities to attend, but the biggest thing I want to give you is opportunities outside of the music industry. You can network at music festivals and conferences, flute fairs, et cetera, but what about small business association groups? What about networking events? I want you to, again, step outside of your comfort zone and, yes, start up a dialogue with other musicians. That's a great start. But what about starting up conversations with graphic designers, architects, small business owners, fitness gurus, tech gurus? I'm telling you, some of the best opportunities that have come to my door is through the means of people outside of the music industry. So let's go to events within the music community. So you can get really creative, right? If you are a flutist, go to the flute fairs, go to the music conferences and summits, go to flute shops, go to music shops, start up a conversation and get to know the other person, okay? And then for non-music events, go to the small business association in your local town or city. Go to networking events, and you can find these through a website that's called eventbrite.com. This is something that I have on my monthly task every month. Kid you not. So on the first of the month, so since we are in April 1st, I have a reminder in red that says, seek out and put down networking events in your calendar. So going to eventbrite.com, I'm typing in networking events, and I'm checking the dates and times that I could show up to these Dallas-Fort Worth events, and I'm putting them in my calendar. Because again, this is a priority for me, and I want to make sure I see it. I make sure I schedule it, so that way I can keep myself accountable. By going to these events, I'm putting myself in front of other small business owners. And by supporting them, the same will be returned to me at some point. Now, sometimes scaling, these relationships into actual opportunities, they take time. So just because you've initiated a relationship, you started up a conversation, it could unfold into a creative opportunity right away. And that's awesome. But sometimes these things take time to grow. Case in point, I remember going to the National Flute Association conference when they held their festival in San Diego, California, many, many years ago. I think it was 2016. I could be wrong, but it was definitely San Diego. And I went to this audition workshop that was presented and co-presented by Erica Peel and Beatrice Macias. And I talked to the two ladies afterwards. I just said who I was getting my doctorate at Texas Tech, and the things that I was aspiring to do. And I was picking their brain about auditions because I had a really high-pressured audition coming up for an orchestra soon, and I wanted to be prepared. Now, little did I know that from that conversation, by the way, those two women, they were fantastic. They were so kind, so generous with their time. And just in that short 5 to 7 minute conversation, I learned a lot. But more importantly, relationships were built, right? And so later when I did a piccolo series for Flute 360 and I reached out to Erica, it felt comfortable. It felt nice. It felt organic because we already had a prior experience to bounce off from. And a little further down the road, I didn't know this at the time, but Beatrice and I end up becoming dear friends. And now she's the artistic director of the Tampere Flute Fest in Finland. How cool is that? And since 2019, 2020, she's been running such a beautiful event in Finland every year, and I get to be a part of that. So whether I was an adjudicator, a clinician, a guest presenter, or a guest artist, I've held these different positions through TFF, and that's all thanks to Beatrice. And that goes back to the beginning of that very first conversation in 2016. I had no idea that all of those opportunities were going to unfold from that 5-minute discussion, but it did. And it's because if you put people first and you genuinely want to get to know them and start up that dialogue, magic happens. I promise you. Another really great example of this is my friendship that I have with Dr. Brielle Frost. She's the flute professor at Lamar University outside of Houston. And once I got word that a flute shop in the area was hiring people for 2 or 3 different positions, I started putting my feelers out to help said flute shop. I said, hey friends, hey flute professors, do you have a current student or a graduate who would be a good fit for one of these 3 flute jobs? And Brielle was one of the first ones to reply to that message. And she said, actually, I have a few graduates who might be a perfect fit. And sure enough, after interviews and the actual formal process, one of her graduate students got hired through this flute shop in Dallas. How cool is that? And all that took was a conversation at NFA a few years ago, a podcast episode here and there, talking to each other through Facebook direct messenger, right? And when an opportunity came up and I was thinking of the people who would be a good fit for said position, I put my feelers out to the people who are in my orbit. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. You have to put the right people in your orbit, and the only way you do that is through relationship building. And you need to be the initiator. Don't be waiting for people to come to you. Don't wait for opportunities to come to you. That will happen in due time. But I want you to be in the game. I want you to be active, and I don't want you to be sitting on the sidelines. Now, if you need another example to get you really inspired and really encouraged to start building these relationships out, another example that I can think of is a few years ago at Team EA, we had a booth for Flute 360, and people were coming in and out of the booth and saying hi and talking to my husband and me about the podcast and their worlds, and I loved it. I love meeting you all in real life. And 2 young men actually were in college at the time, and they came up to the booth and they said, a music podcast? How cool is that? They told us about their tech background and how they really want to get into audio engineering and work through live gigs and helping live bands with their live concerts. And one of my sister companies is J&K Media Productions. That's what we do. We help musicians in the Dallas area with their live gigs. So they happened to come up to our booth and started talking to us about their dreams and aspirations at the right time. I literally told them, guys, my husband's getting older and he needs some young lads to help him with this heavy equipment. If you're willing, we would love to hire you in the summertime to help him with this equipment going from gig to gig. Would you be willing to do that? And they were just floored. They were mouth agape. They're just oh my gosh, are you kidding? Is this really happening? It can really be that simple, guys. And I think we tend to get in a frenzy of what I should say, what I shouldn't say, how is it going to go down? What do I propose? How do I frame it? How do I articulate this or that? Be yourself. Start from a common ground. Think of common things that thread us humans together. Hobbies, interests, geography, family members, your goals, your job. Put it out there. Start with something and then read the room. See what the other person's talking about. Listen to them and engage. Now, when I think of an example of being in the game and not on the sidelines or waiting for somebody to call you, I am reminded of a conversation that I had with Dr. Flute, and her name is Dr. Angela McBearty in episode 265. And she shares in that conversation how she lives in upstate New York. And there's not a lot of opportunity there for performances. So what did she do? She didn't say, oh, woe is me. I'm not, anywhere near New York City or Boston or Philadelphia for big performing opportunities, so I can't do it. No, she didn't say that to herself at all. She said, okay, I am going to grow where I'm planted. What can I do with this space and with the resources that have been given to me? Let me be really creative within this space. So she started knocking on people's doors. She started reaching out to musicians that she met at, local events, festivals, etc. And she rang their phone and said, hey, do you want to play with me? Hey, do you want to start a small ensemble so we can play at weddings, ceremonies, graduation, whatever the case may be? And now she gets to perform on the regular because of that. How cool is that? She didn't wait for her phone to ring. She picked up the phone. And I know it can feel daunting. I know it can feel scary. But trust me, the worst case scenario that could happen is the other person on the line, they say no. That's it. The earth keeps spinning. The sun still comes out the next day. Life is good. And I make it a challenge. Actually, I told this to one of my students in our Voxer communication between our private one-on-one lessons. I told her, I'll call her Jane. Jane, I challenge you to see how many no's you can receive this week. Instead of pushing back the rejection and wishing that it didn't happen, embrace it. See how many no's you can get. Because the more you do it, the more you realize that those no's really can't hurt you. Yeah, it stings a little bit at first, but you learn to move on. It's just like flexing that muscle. It's training that muscle with weight. The more you do it, the easier it will be. And the last thing that I want to leave you with in today's episode is I'm so inspired by my peers, and specifically the peers who are in this joint musicpreneur mastermind where we get to come together every month and share our wins and our losses. These 6 people come together every month to share what's working for their music business, what's not working, and what I see time and time again through the tactics, through the strategy, through everything that they're doing for their music studio is they are action takers. They are not on the sidelines. They are in the game, putting themselves out there time and time again. And whether it's a Facebook challenge, a webinar, a summer camp, Facebook ads, they are wanting and they are willing to put themselves out there in a very vulnerable way to make things happen, to build doors with others, to make opportunities for themselves and for their business. So huge shout out to Jared Judge, Jenna Engel, Kate Cayenne, Dr. Catherine Eminent, Dr. Renee Paul Gauthier, and Sam Reddy. I think I covered everyone. We get to meet at the last Friday of every month and we talk about Facebook ad strategies, recruitment, networking, and things like that. And the reason why I share this with you is because I learn a lot from them. A lot. And the one nugget that I see from them time and time again is they are true action takers. They are putting themselves out there. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it comes easy, sometimes it doesn't. And I know the times that it doesn't feel very natural for me, it's because I just have to work that muscle. So for example, I wanted to take my business and my studio in a new direction for the winter of 2023. I wanted to try a 5-day challenge. Now that was uncomfortable for me. Some aspects were super fun and other aspects were new, so it was a little scary. But I wanted to pull more flutists into the Flute 360 orbit. And one thing that I hadn't tried before was a 5-day challenge. And I did that throughout the month of December 2023. And let me tell you what, yeah, I did it scared, but I did it. I got to network. I built an opportunity for flutists to come in to learn about storytelling, to have a VIP hour. And I got to know flutists from across the world and the country that much more. I got to network with flutists just like you, but through a means that made me feel a little uncomfortable at first. But you betcha, if I were to do more challenges like that every month, it would start feeling more organic and more natural as time went on. This is what I want for you. I want you to step outside of your comfort zone and try a Facebook Live, try an Instagram Reel, try making a video for TikTok, try inviting people to a 5-day challenge, a webinar, something. Think of the things that you're passionate about. Think of the people who inspire you and motivate you. And this could be a really great action task for you to put on your to-do list today. Start up a mastermind. Why not? I just mentioned the 6 friends and peers of mine who I really look up to. And it's because they are taking action and setting up a really good example for me to see month after month for inspiration, motivation, and new ideas coming in and out of my flute studio. Now, I also use that mastermind not just to get to know them better and to offer tips and suggestions too along the way, but it's a great way to be accountable for the tasks and goals that I have on my list. So if you want to start off small in terms of networking, you can do a slew of different things. Find the thing that works well for you. Is it attending an SBA, Small Business Association networking group? Is it DMing somebody, emailing somebody, starting up a mastermind, or going to a flute fair and talking to businesses in the exhibit hall? Try it out. There are a million different possibilities out there for you to put your name out there, for you to start knocking on doors, and for you to start building your own doors of opportunity. Yes, it could be scary at first, but I'm here to encourage you and empower you that you can do it. And speaking of jumping into networking circles and events, I swear that this is totally a natural segue, but I've built a network for you. Over the years, through Flute 360, I have built relationships with flutists from all walks of life. Beginners, intermediate, pre-professional, professional, adult enthusiasts, guest artists, and the list goes on and on. We have a fantastic flute community in the Flute 360 world, and you are invited. Jump into my orbit. Take advantage of meeting my friends. They would love to get to know you. So that way you can call them your own. If you want to be in a community like that where you are held accountable towards your practicing and career goals, you want love and support, you need prayer, you need uplifting words of encouragement to get from week to week, semester to semester, I have the group for you. We would love to invite you to our April 20th Accelerator Programs Mastermind and Masterclass that's happening in a few weeks. It goes down from 11 a.m. Central Time to 1 p.m. Central Time. And no worries if you cannot attend live. There are tons of opportunities in the background happening through Boxer, emails, and our Google Drive folder where you will feel welcomed and encouraged within our group. So if you want to join April 20th session, go ahead and click the link in the show notes and we would love to see you. And until next time. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review through your favorite podcast app, such as Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Music, among others. Thank you.
Let's talk about flute.